They call it the dead shift in Cleveland, Ohio, the hours between 2 o'clock and 4 a.m., when the city goes quiet in a way that feels unnatural, like something is holding its breath. That was when Aaron Bell worked alone as a night security guard at the old Lakeshore Medical Annex, a concrete building left behind after the main hospital relocated years earlier. The annex was scheduled for demolition, but until permits cleared, someone had to sit inside it every night and make sure nothing happened. Aaron never believed in haunted places. He believed in long hours, cheap coffee, and keeping his head down. The job paid more than most night shifts, and that was enough. The building itself felt empty, but not abandoned. The lights still worked. The elevators still hummed quietly to themselves. And the hallways smelled faintly of disinfectant, like the place refused to admit was dead. His first week passed without incident, until a motion sensor on the third floor tripped at exactly 2:17 a.m. The alert popped up on his monitor with a soft chime. Camera view switched automatically to a long hallway lined with peeling doors and flickering fluorescent lights. Nothing moved. No shadow crossed the frame. After 6 seconds, the alert stopped. Aaron shrugged it off and logged it as a sensor glitch. The next night, it happened again. Same hallway, same time, same 6 seconds. By the fourth night, Aaron had memorized the hallway. A water-stained shape like a handprint on the ceiling. A wheelchair left crooked against the wall. Room numbers missing digits, as if someone had pried them off. He joked to himself that if something really was walking around up there, it was very punctual. On the sixth night, he heard the footsteps. He was making his rounds on the second floor when the sound reached him from behind. Bare feet on tile. Slow. Careful. The kind of walking someone does when they don't want to be heard. Aaron stopped. The footsteps stopped too. He turned around, flashlight cutting through the dim hallway. Nothing. The air felt colder behind him, heavy and damp, like he'd stepped into a basement. When he started walking again, the footsteps resumed, matching his pace exactly, never getting closer, never falling behind. When he spun around a second time, they vanished. He laughed nervously and blamed exhaustion. The camera log showed nothing. By the 12th night, Aaron had stopped pretending the building was empty. At 2:17 a.m., he was already watching the third floor feed when the sensor tripped. This time, the camera didn't show an empty hallway. It showed him, standing there. He stared at the screen in confusion. He was still sitting in the security office. He hadn't left his chair. On the monitor, his on-screen self stood facing the wall, head tilted slightly, like he was listening to something whispering just inches from his ear. The image stuttered, then snapped back to an empty hallway. Aaron checked the timestamp. Live feed. His radio crackled softly on his belt. "Aaron, can you help me?" His blood ran cold. The voice coming through the radio was his own. Same pitch, same tired rasp. Even the pause before the name, the way he always spoke when he was thinking. He whispered, "That's not funny," though no one was there to hear him. The radio clicked again. "I'm on the third floor." The voice said, "I fell. It's dark." Aaron stood slowly, heart hammering. Who is this? The radio stayed silent for several seconds, long enough for him to hope it had been interference. Then the voice laughed. It wasn't right. It came out too slow, stretched and uneven, like someone copying a sound they didn't understand. The radio screeched, and every monitor in the security office went black at once. The lights went out. Aaron stood in total darkness, listening to breathing that was not his own. When the power came back, he was no longer in the office. He was standing in the third-floor hallway, barefoot. His flashlight lay on the floor beside him, still on, casting warped shadows along the walls. He didn't remember walking, didn't remember climbing the stairs. His legs ached as if he'd been standing there for hours. The hallway was silent, too silent. The smell returned, stronger now. Wet fabric, old skin, something that had been closed up for a long time. He felt a presence behind him and knew, with sudden certainty, that if he turned around too fast, something terrible would happen. Still, he turned. The air shimmered like heat over asphalt. A shape stood inches away from him, taller than he was, thin to the point of distortion. Its skin hung loosely, stretched over bone like it hadn't decided what form to keep. Where its face should have been was a smooth, pale surface, interrupted only by two dark hollows that leaked something wet and reflective. It leaned closer and spoke. "Stay." Aaron screamed and ran. The cameras recorded him sprinting down the hallway, slamming into doors, sobbing, begging anyone to answer him. The footage glitched violently as the shape followed, not running, not walking, but sliding forward in short, jerking movements like it was skipping frames. At 4:03 a.m., the feed cut completely. Aaron was found the next morning, sitting in the stairwell between the second and third floors. His uniform was neatly folded beside him. His badge rested on top. His shoes were lined up against the wall. His eyes were open. The coroner ruled it a heart attack brought on by stress. But the maintenance crew found something else before the building was sealed. On the third-floor hallway wall, directly across from the camera, were hundreds of fingerprints, all different sizes, all pressed deep into the paint, as if something had leaned against the wall with its entire body. The prints faced inward, as if something had been trying to come through from the other side. The Lakeshore Medical Annex was shut down permanently after that. The cameras were removed. The power was cut. The doors were welded shut. But the reports didn't stop. Security guards in nearby buildings complained of radios turning on by themselves, whispering their names in their own voices. Motion sensors tripped at 2:17 a.m. exactly, even in buildings with no third floor. And sometimes, on late-night security footage, a familiar face appears standing in a hallway, facing the wall listening. Aaron Bell's face, still on the dead shift, still answering when someone calls for help, and still learning how to sound exactly like you. The city tried to forget the Lakeshore Medical Annex, but the building didn't forget the city. 3 months after it was sealed, the first 911 call came in from inside the annex. The caller didn't scream. He didn't sound panicked. He sounded tired, like someone who had been working too many nights in a row. He said his name was Aaron Bell. The dispatcher assumed it was a prank until the caller repeated his badge number correctly and described the security office layout down to the dent in the filing cabinet and the coffee stain on the floor that had never fully dried. When the dispatcher asked how he was calling from a building without power, the line went quiet. Then Aaron's voice said, "I can't find the door anymore." The call disconnected. Police arrived within minutes, forced open one of the welded entrances, and found nothing inside but dust and darkness. No phone, no signal, no movement. The building was resealed, this time with a warning notice posted on every entrance. The notice didn't last a week. Nearby buildings began reporting the same problem. Motion sensors activating at exactly 2:17 a.m. radios turning on by themselves. Intercoms crackling with static that shaped itself into words if you listened long enough. Always the same request. "Can you help me?" It wasn't just security guards who heard it. A janitor working late at a courthouse 2 blocks away heard his own voice calling from an empty stairwell. A hospital nurse swore she answered a page from her own extension, only to hear herself breathing on the other end. A parking garage attendant quit on the spot after the pay station spoke his name. The city blamed a software update, but the recordings told a different story. A detective named Linda Kessler was assigned to review the reports. She didn't believe in ghosts. She believed in patterns. And the pattern was clear. Every incident happened between 2 o'clock and 4 a.m., always peaked at 2:17, and always involved a voice the listener trusted. Linda worked late reviewing audio files one night when her office phone rang. She almost ignored it. Almost. The caller ID showed her own extension. She picked up slowly. "Hello." Her own voice answered back, perfectly calm. "You stayed late again." Her throat tightened. "Who is this?" There was a pause, just long enough to feel intentional. "I got lost," the voice said. "It's dark where I am. You can help me." Linda slammed the phone down and sat there shaking, listening to the hum of the lights. When she checked the call log, there was nothing. No incoming call. No record. That night, she requested access to the annex footage again. Most of the cameras were gone, but one server had been overlooked, a backup unit installed years earlier and forgotten. It held corrupted fragments, Partial clips recorded during Erin's final shift. Most were useless. Static, glitches, black frames. Then she found one file marked 2 hours, 17 minutes, and 6 seconds. The footage showed the third-floor hallway, empty at first. Then the wall rippled, like something pressed against it from behind. A shape emerged slowly, forcing itself forward as if squeezing through a membrane. It wasn't fully formed, its limbs bent wrong, its head too smooth, but its posture was familiar. Human. The shape turned toward the camera and smiled. Linda shut the laptop. She didn't sleep that night. Neither did anyone else assigned to the case. Within weeks, Cleveland issued a quiet directive to night shift workers across the city. Do not respond to unidentified radio calls, intercom messages, or voice prompts during overnight hours. No explanation was given. Most ignored it. Then the disappearances started. Not violent, not dramatic. Just people who worked nights and never came home. Their workplaces showed signs of activity, doors opened, lights switched on, radios activated, but no struggle, no forced entry. In every case, audio equipment recorded something at 2:17 a.m. Breathing, sometimes whispering, sometimes someone saying, "Stay." The final incident forced the city to act. A private security firm sent a 2-man team to inspect the annex after multiple alarms triggered simultaneously. Both men wore body cameras. The footage was released briefly before being pulled from the internet. It showed them entering the building, joking nervously, flashlights cutting through dust. At 2:16 a.m., one of them froze. "Do you hear that?" he asked. From somewhere deep in the building, a voice answered. Yes, it was his voice. At 2:17, every hallway light turned on at once. The cameras caught dozens of figures standing along the walls, thin, pale shapes facing inward, heads tilted, listening. Some looked half-formed. Some looked complete. One of them turned toward the guards. It had Aaron Bell's face. The feed cut. The guards were never found. The annex was demolished 6 weeks later, reduced to rubble. The site was paved over and turned into a parking lot. Officials declared the case closed. But the dead shift didn't end, because whatever learned how to copy a voice didn't need the building anymore. People still hear in offices, hospitals, apartment stairwells, anywhere quiet enough for a whisper to travel. It never shouts. It never threatens. It just asks for help. And if you answer, if you speak back, if you say its name, it learns you, your tone, your pauses, your breathing. And somewhere at exactly 2:17 a.m., something starts practicing how to sound exactly like you, waiting for someone else to answer.